Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Customer Success Story webinar with Kirsteen Howarth, Service Delivery Manager at Charities Aid Foundation. Hello, Kirsty. In the room with me is Patrick Bolger, our Chief Evangelist, who will moderate today's session and run Q&A at the end of the webinar. Just to inform you, delegate audio will be muted during the presentations to facilitate flow and timekeeping. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the GoToMeeting question facility on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll collect the questions and answer them at the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for taking time to attend, and I will now pass you over to Pat to do a brief introduction before handing over to Kirsteen.
Hi everybody, I'm Patrick Bolger, Hornbill's Chief Evangelist, and delighted to be moderating this session with Kirsteen Howarth, the Senior Service Delivery Manager at Charities Aid Foundation. So the title of the webinar is Supportworks-out-of-the-box, and it's about the journey that Charities Aid Foundation took in looking for and delivering a solution that they could configure themselves in-house without doing extensive customization. They got a busy service desk, and they wanted to take advantage of the configurability of Supportworks and the functionality that they kind of get out of the box to achieve a greater level of transparency of what they're doing with ITSM and big advances in their efficiencies, such as improving the customer experience, getting more visibility of their performance and streamlining their workflows. So Kirsteen is going to take us through that journey. Hi, Kirsteen.
Hi, Pat. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Yes, I do want to take you through our journey. But I thought I'd just start off just by telling you a little bit about who the Charities Aid Foundation, because for those of you like myself who prior to 6 years ago hadn't really heard of the Charities Aid Foundation and the good work that they do. So we are known as CAF. We are made up of two companies. One being the Charities Aid Foundation, whose primary mission is to motivate society to give ever more effectively, really, whilst helping to transform lives and communities across the world. So we are a charity, and we want to make an impact in the charitable sector. And so what drives us to do that is all the help that we give. So we work with and help individual donors to give more effectively. So that's like you and I as individuals. We can take one of CAF's products, which is Give As You Earn, so similar to Pay As You Earn, but a lot nicer. And you can set up your own individual accounts to be able to donate regularly to charities. We help charities to thrive just in general by some of the products that we offer, and we support businesses to help them to achieve a greater impact. And we also work internationally. And when I say internationally, we've got offices in America, in Brazil, in Australia, and lots of other places. So we harness their local knowledge and expertise to help charities and donors worldwide to give effectively. We also have our sister company, CAF Bank. We've recently started advertising on Smooth FM and Heart, for those of you who are listeners on those channels. We are a bank for charities and not-for-profit organisations. So we are dedicated to serving those sectors and providing banking services with benefits that you would want, such as confidence that your money's safe and that any profits are reinvested in the charity sector. And that's managed by a UK call centre, which is in Kings Hill, as is the Charities Aid Foundation call centre, also in Kings Hill, which is near Maidstone in Kent. And where I am today. So we've been around for about 90 years. We've got just over 450 staff across our site in Kent and an office near St Paul's in London. And although me as a service delivery manager don't support from an IT point of view our colleagues overseas, we do provide them with services like Office 365, but we don't actually support their desktop and their IT. As you imagine, that might be a bit of a nightmare. So that's who we are. As Pat alluded in his introduction, there were several things that we wanted to do. We had a system called Heat, which was a front range product, which prior to my arrival at CAF had been introduced, but had been introduced at its very basic level and had not been further enhanced for 2 or 3 years. So it was slightly painful for our customers to use, so the experience wasn't the best. Prior to my taking, just as I took on the service desk at CAF, I wanted to make sure that we started looking at ITIL best practices, so I put the whole of my team through ITIL version 3 foundation training. In order for them, everybody to be singing from the same song sheet, I guess. We had barely had MI coming out of our previous ITSM, and what we did have, we used to have to pay just about £1,000 a day for a developer to come in to help us make those reports look nicer. We didn't have a user-friendly self-service portal. We had a self-service portal, it's fair to say, but the navigation of that, we relied very much more on the general dialogue box that was at the end rather than the categorization of what a customer actually wanted. So by the time they'd filled in kind of what they thought, actually you got the gist of what the call was by what they typed in the general dialogue box. So not a good experience either. And we wanted to introduce what we called our menu of IT services. So people knew what the service desk did, people knew what user support did, people kind of knew what happened in IT. We did try to tell them all that we weren't a bunch of boffins. So we wanted to come up with a good way to show the services that IT offered and how we could make a difference to that first customer experience for anybody new joining the company and for existing colleagues as well. So that's what we wanted to do. Obviously we had an existing ITSM tool, so we had to go out for RFI, so we had to go out for requests for information from colleagues who were in that sector, so who were providing support tool, ITSM tools, sorry. So we went to Hornbill and plenty of others and came up with a set of criteria that each supplier was marked against, I guess. And then when we got down to, we asked for, when we looked at all those scorings and invited the top 3 suppliers to come in and to present their solutions. And we decided pretty quickly, I guess, that Hornbill was definitely our preferred supplier. They were our preferred supplier because they offered us the flexibility, we had the configurability, we had much more of an ownership of the ITSM tool than we had ever had before. And so May 2014, we started the quick start process, which is the implementation, I guess, the implementation plan of the Supportworks solution. And then, my gosh, came a huge learning curve for me and my team. We were looking at business process models, we were looking at wizards, we were looking at how we could import data that existed outside. So we use Landsweeper as a discovery type tool, how we could import and accept bits of that data into Supportworks to help us provide a much more rounded ITSM tool. We had shed loads of testing. I can't tell you how many orders or how many call logs we created. The testing of the business process models and the wizards was hilarious at times and frustrating at others, but the finished product was exactly what we wanted. And we did, at the end of all that, we did our demos out to the business, showing them the Supportworks tool and introducing them to our menu. Introducing the menu was very important to us, and the reason for that was when you listed out the services, we decided we'd say that there was different types of menus. So as you would go into a restaurant and you were a vegetarian, you would only want to see the vegetarian menu. So equating that to our colleagues in the business, our customer services teams within CAF didn't want to have a look at the types of the services that IT could raise, because they're not bothered about fire accounts, they're not bothered about all the different requests for change that we might put through, they're not bothered about service requests that would just impact the IT team. They only want to see their own menu of things that affect them. And so likewise, and so we developed all these different menus. So when our customers logged in, they would only be selecting from a list of services that they were going to use, and we did that by looking at a bunch of analysis of the types of calls that had been raised and all the bits of relevant information in the general dialogue boxes, and just making sure that we had that bang to rights before we even rolled out Supportworks. So, as I say, it was very important for us to get the menu right, and Supportworks just lends itself to that. In the self-service portal, it is so user-friendly. You log in, it knows it's you, and it only brings up the systems that you've subscribed to or that we have enabled on your behalf. So it was very, very important to us. So what have we achieved so far? So, gosh, I did this presentation at the Hub back in November, I think. I was really, really nervous actually. And we had already in just under a year achieved so much. So we're now a year and a bit down the road. We have 35 support analysts now who are licensed to use Supportworks across here and across our office in London. We've implemented role-based access control. Role-based, I hope I'm not going to preach to anybody, but role-based access control was something that didn't exist at CAF, which Supportworks absolutely helped us to implement. There was a project going on, a data project going on, whereby we had previously had servers that were shared, where everybody could put their information in this shared server, and people could access whatever folders they were given instruction to access. As part of the IT data project, each individual area had their own distributed file server. So we started in IT and moved out to the rest of the business. And we thought, at this point in time, we were starting the implementation, so we were in the implementation phase with Supportworks. We thought, oh, do you know what, it'd be a really good idea if we delayed our implementation, our go live of Supportworks, in order to implement a role-based access control off the back of the work that the IT data project had been doing. And so another journey began, I guess, for us, was the starters, movers, leavers process, and how could we make that a lot less painful for our colleagues in customer services and all across the business, actually. So we looked at the amount of forms that were required to be raised as part of somebody new starting to the business. CAF has a shed load of legacy applications, and each one in its own individual right had a form which needed to be filled in, and you said who did you want to clone in order for person Y to start on their given date. And worst case scenario, there were between 9 and 11 forms that had to be filled in order to get that person their access on day one of starting at CAF. Sometimes it was a bit worse if you worked in the bank because there was different applications, and they are regulated as well, so there was further regulatory compliance around recorded and non-recorded lines. So there was lots of differences. So our managers were not feeling the love, I think it's fair to say, for the starters process. They used to dread somebody starting because they had all these forms that they had to fill in, they had all the notice that they had to give IT in order for those requests to be fulfilled, which also meant that the service desk had some work to do around the telephony applications, and the desktop team had to do around making sure that there was the correct PC, thin client, fat client, phone on the desk, etc., etc. So we decided that we would try and automate this process for our colleagues. We'd done the data project within the bank and customer services already, which were two of our big areas for turnover of staff. So we worked initially with them and created business processes for the starters, the movers and the leavers process, which our previous ITSM tool would not have let us put in place at all. This was met with an absolutely resounding success. It was implemented, as I say, with the bank and with customer services within CAF. And when I say the bank, I mean all of their areas, so customer services, finance, compliance, the treasury team, their operational team. So everybody within the bank got the benefit of that from day one of launching Supportworks. And as I say, it was met with an absolutely resounding success. It is one call ticket now for a starter. It's one call ticket if you want to amend that person's role-based access. It is one ticket if you want to, that person moves to another role within CAF, and it's also only one ticket if that person decides to leave CAF. So it was a huge win, not only for us in the volumes of paper reduction and those forests that we all need to save, but also in our colleagues not having to fill in the forms. So, and we couldn't have done it without Supportworks. We've now got improved, so you can see a little snippet down at the bottom there. Don't look at the figures, but just see there's quite a bit of green on there, which is loads better than we were several months ago. We have these dashboards, which we report out to against on a month-by-month basis. So we've got our KPIs, our SLAs with all of our colleagues within the business. We've also now realised the benefit of asking other areas, so particularly around the starters, movers, leavers process. We've got HR on board now, so there was another initial form, surprise, surprise, that needed to be filled in for an approval to recruit, which is now automated at the start of the starters process. And our colleagues in office services also have their own queue within Supportworks for, either the starters or the leavers process, where they might need to retrieve equipment, or they need to know that the desk that the new person's going to has got a clean and tidy pedestal. They've got the display screen equipment form to make sure that everything's right for that person on the day one of them starting. So yeah, so all that functionality is now being used, and there is further bandwidth for us to get HR and office services to be using it. I apologise for that. So what's next for us then? So the reason why we entitled this presentation as Supportworks Out the Box is because we only implemented, we initially implemented incident management and service request fulfillment. That was our choice. We wanted to make sure that we got that right. So we need now to start looking at other things that we can utilise within Supportworks. So obviously there is the ability for problem management, there's the ability for change management. You've got, the CMDB, so we're starting to use Landsweeper to import all our servers, and so that was a starting point for us. So we had a recent visit from Mary, who came to see us and help us to decide on how it is that we want to start the implementation of change management. So our process at the moment is manual, so RFCs are filled in on a weekly basis. They go to a CAB meeting on a Tuesday where they either get approved or they don't get approved. We do audits of those changes to make sure that they were implemented successfully and all the signed documentation is uploaded into the correct place on our distributed file server. And now we need to automate it. It's another piece of paper that we need to get rid of, but we need to do it. We need to do it in the right way. So the change management functionality within Supportworks is also down. Sorry, they will come down and prioritise those. We've been prioritising them for them in the past. The improvements to the processes, they'll come down and prioritise their own requirements, and we'll tell them what bandwidth we have on a monthly basis, so how much resource can I spare to deliver improvements to Supportworks. So monthly sprints, as I mentioned before, we've got our types of menu. So our vegetarian menus, and our vegan menus, and our carnivore menus for those who have access to everything. And very importantly for my team, as a team who deliver service to both organisations, it was very important to me that my team felt empowered to be able to make some of the changes. And because Supportworks is so configurable, and because we have a way now where we can track and measure those changes that we make, the team are not backwards in coming forwards. I think it's fair to say in making sure that their voice is heard, and changes and things that they don't like about Supportworks or improvements that can be made, I think is a better way of putting it. that they're empowered to raise those calls and make sure that we deliver those in a timely manner as well. One of the other things that when I talked before about the reporting, the enhanced reporting, that's also brought us closer to our customers within the business. We now have monthly service reviews with all our departments. So we have a service review with customer services where we only talk about the service that we've delivered them. They're not bothered about the service that we delivered to finance. They're not bothered about the service that we delivered to the CAF bank. They just want to know how did my team deliver against our P1s, 2s, 3s, 4s and our service requests for them, and for them to talk about things that they would like to see further improved. So we do that. It's a same agenda, same discussion with every area of the business now at varying levels. So some people, like our colleagues within the bank and within customer services, we meet them once a month. Other areas, like our colleagues who deal with private clients or with trusts, we meet them once a quarter. So it's on a needs basis, and we review that as well. Also in those meetings where we are giving people access to restricted folders, we also review that type of thing with them at those meetings and just say, you know, is it still appropriate that this person has access into this folder because you granted it and it was only for a project of X amount of time, and so we talk about those as well. So it's really helped us get out there into the business and be the face of IT, and be known as the people who they can come to when they've got a problem, and you know they know who it is that they can go and talk to. You know, if I had an office with a door, it would always be open. I don't, and people just do drive-bys instead. But I welcome that opportunity to be able to talk to people, you know, openly about what it is that we do and how we can provide a better service for them. With our previous system, that was just not possible. So thank you very much for listening to us prattle on, and I hope you found it interesting. And I guess if anybody's got any questions, I'll try and answer them for you.
Thanks, Kirsteen. That was fantastic. You guys have gone through a massive change by the sounds of things.
Absolutely enormous. It's you can't quantify it because I can't even think back to how dire it was, Pat.
Because there's actually have quite a few questions come in for you here, and a lot of them stand in various different areas that you talked about. But I'll start with, because we're talking about business units and stuff like that. So I'll start with the attitude of business units towards IT and towards your services. How has that changed since you've implemented the tool and done all this great work?
I think massively so. I think, you know, we provided a service beforehand that, you know, that's not disputed, and my team worked as hard, you know, as they do now, if not harder now. I think because we felt so confident in the product, meaning Supportworks, because we felt so comfortable with the product, then I don't know whether it's come across my passion for Supportworks and how it has been that enabler to build bridges, I guess, where some relationships might have been on the crumble prior. I think the introduction of the service reviews with all of the business units and has been so much more transparent about the service that we provide on an individual basis. So, like I said before, you know, when we're talking to customer services, we're only talking about the service that we provided them. Previously, we would have been talking about the service that we provided to CAF, meaning CAF and CAF Bank. So now it's much more on an individual basis, and that seems to be working really well.
Well, customers like to be treated as individuals, don't they? Or at least individual business units. Actually, that leads me right into one of the next questions I've had here, which basically said, um, like the idea of the service reviews and doing that with individual business units, but does feedback from those service reviews feed into some kind of formalized service improvement thing? So are you logging a request, for example, like if there's a service request, if there's a suggestion from a customer as to how things might be improved?
Yeah, we take the view of, so is it an improvement to an existing service, or is it something new that somebody wants to see? And we don't necessarily log them as service requests. What we'll do is, if it's an improvement to an existing service, so one of our services on our menu, we will create a service delivery task within Jira for that to go into a monthly sprint. I think at the beginning, when we first started the service reviews, it was a lot more, well, I don't like this and I don't like that, and oh, I think we should have this and I think we should have that. But now the conversations are much more to and fro, so between both. Instead of it being like an onslaught of, well, IT doesn't do this and you've never done that and it would be so much better if this was this way. It's much more a two-way street now, because they can see the things that are being delivered as part of the monthly sprint, so we communicate what's going to be in our next sprint.
Right. Okay, that's a clever way to do it. And actually, you mentioned something there when you're talking about your menu of services, or I suppose a lot of people call it service request catalog or service catalog or whatever. But you mentioned you did something which I think is, I've advised people to do this before, but it's a really simple way to start. Just looking at the types of call each business unit raised before you actually started to propose services to them. But did you need further engagement with business units to understand if there's anything missing or what they wanted on their menus?
Oh gosh, yeah. So because of the tool that we had beforehand, as I mentioned at the beginning, you know, the actual categorization of each call didn't really mean a thing.
Yeah.
It was more that what was in the body of the text of the call that actually meant that. So sometimes that needed further clarification on what is it actually that you wanted. And when we were doing the analysis, it was, you could very easily group things into, you know, these are starter related tasks, or this is somebody who wants a keyboard, this is somebody who wants a new mouse, or, you know, it's very easy to do those ones. But when you start getting into the depths of course we have to, you know, consult with our colleagues across the business to make sure that we were getting the menu right for them, because as I said, it was so important for us to get that menu right.
Yeah.
From the beginning, so that they could see it was a completely different experience to what they'd had before.
Absolutely.
We did roadshows as well with everybody, so we didn't just demo the product, we showed them stuff, and we had loads of sessions here in Kings Hill. We had sessions up in London where we invited people just to drop by and just have a look and just see, you know, what it looked like.
Well, you're putting a lot of IT groups to shame there. It's a really good process, and I've seen it before, that when you get that level of engagement and that degree of personalization, you get a completely different attitude towards what IT is doing and how it's doing it.
Definitely.
Yeah. There's another question I got in here. So you're talking, someone wanted to know about your kind of starter lever process and stuff like that. Actually, I thought it was quite funny when you're talking about, I suppose, your starters. Who did you want to clone? I didn't know you were cloning people there.
Well, it is Kent.
Fair enough. No, but more seriously, someone basically talking about, hold on, what did I say? Does HR or office services, because you mentioned they're actually now this kind of enterprise service management approach, they're actually starting to use some of the functionality. Are they sharing any calls or work with IT? So I'd imagine, you know, a new starter comes on board, HR might do the initial bit, and then say, here, IT, there's a new person joining. So you sharing calls between office service and HR and IT?
Yes. So what we did as part of the Starters Movers Leaves Pro, so I mentioned that we've got HR on board by getting another piece of paper out of the way, and that's the approval to recruit process. That is now an initial service request that our colleagues can go in and select. So it's another form, and that goes off to approval to the exec board to make sure that you haven't subverted the approval process to get somebody new into the business. Not that I'm saying people do that, God forbid. So that's an initial service request. The actual body of the new starter request has a parent call, and that parent call in the CAF world goes initially off to our operations team, who at the minute do all of our user administration. What happens as part of the business process that is built into that new starter request is that tasks or child tickets, if you like, children tickets, go off to user support for them to make sure that they do the desk, make sure that the desk is all in order before the person starts. A task or child ticket, goes off to office services for them to check the pedestal, make sure there's a nice seat there, make sure that they get their stationery pack, make sure that a DSA form is sent off to their manager, and also there is a child task goes off to the service desk team, who at the moment do all the provisioning for the telephony. So for the IPFX, does that customer need to be, does that colleague need to have a recorded line or not? Are they part of the hunt group or not? Are they part of the pickup group or not, etc., etc. So sharing tickets is a way to put it, I guess. You've got a parent ticket, and then you've got child tasks that come off that ticket.
Well, it seems to me that the most sensible way of doing it, because then you retain kind of full visibility of the original request as a parent call, and then you can see, I suppose, the status of each individual activity against the child calls.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Okay. I've got a final question for you here, which someone's asked. What other solutions did you look at in your selection process, and what stood out about Hornbill?
So what stood out about Hornbill? Well, I'm going to name a person actually who stood out for Hornbill, because it was the guy who came and demoed the product to us. Was Stuart McCready. So Stuart came and demoed the product to him, and at this he kind of, we all thought he was a bit abrupt, but it wasn't that. It was just he was so eager to try and show us all the things that were saying, because we were saying, right, we want to be able to be notified of new tickets coming into the. Can we have a pop-up box? Yes, you can have a pop-up box. And off you were showing like how this would be, how this would, the product would show you the new tickets coming in. So Stuart sold Supportworks to CAF. We did look at other products. We looked at Salesforce. We looked at SA Manage. We looked at Remedy. You're asking us to try and remember. I'm getting old now. I can't remember. But we looked at, I think there was about 10 companies in the Gartner quadrant at the time who we went and had a look at. So Stuart McCready sold Supportworks to CAF. I think it's fair to say his enthusiasm. I think, Pat, I think you mentioned it right back at the beginning. One of the things that we had been hindered by with our previous tool was that we had no ownership or ability to configure the product. So you've got to be able to I'm going to use the word CAFize things, or you've got to be able to make the product fit your business. So, the ITIL framework is exactly the same. It doesn't work in the same way for everybody, and that's why it's a framework. Supportworks does exactly the same. You set your services up, you set your business process model up, you set your wizards up as to how that works for your business, and the flexibility that gives you, and the credibility it gives IT back with the business to show that you're listening to what it is that your customers are saying. is what sold Supportworks to us.
And how easy is it, just a matter of interest, how easy is it for you guys to take on that work and do that configuration yourselves?
It's not easy. It's just like everything else. You have to prioritize it.
Yep.
And if your monthly sprint, if your sprinted items changes because you're inundated with P1s, as long as you're communicating that back out with your customers, as long as you are, having that two-way conversation, they know what's impacting them in the business. If there's P1s going on, it's because they're impacted by them. They're going to be less concerned about an improvement to a wizard or a change of a question as part of a wizard than they are about making sure that their P1s are sorted. So it's all about communicating back.
Yeah, absolutely. Kirsteen, this has been fantastic. I think a bit of an inspiration for any service desks that are struggling out there. That all you need to do is kind of engage with the customer, understand what they're looking for, and try and deliver a service that's quite individual to them, rather than just a generic kind of, here you go, this is our menu for everyone. And I think that basic simple approach is something that often gets missed, and well done, you're clearly making a difference.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, folks. I'll pass you back to Tatiana, who will just wrap this up, and thank you, Kirsteen. That was really, really excellent.
Thanks, Pat.
Perfect. Thank you, Kirsteen, for taking us through your experience with Supportworks. It was a really great story. And thank you, Pat, for running and moderating the session. If anyone else has additional questions, please feel free to contact Hornbill or your relationship manager. We'll put you in contact with Kirsteen to answer any questions you still can think of. Just to let you know, the recording will be made available on Customer Forum and Supportworks YouTube channel, and we'll send you an email with a link to it. So finally, thank you everyone for their time today, and we're looking forward to seeing you at our next webinars at Hornbill Academy or other customer success stories. So thank you very much and have a lovely day. Thank you, Kirsteen.
Thank you.
Bye.